I'm 103 years old. When you reach an age like mine, people stop asking you about your plans and start asking you about your past. They lean closer when you speak. They expect something wise, something poetic, as if every wrinkle on your face is hiding a secret. For most of my life, I didn't think I had any special wisdom. I was just a man trying to survive, trying to build something, trying to prove that my life meant something. But after 103 years, after wars, heartbreaks, victories, losses, laughter, funerals, and long silent nights, I can tell you this. There is one lesson most people learn too late. And I almost learned it too late myself. I wasn't always wise. At 27, I thought I knew everything. At 35, I was certain I understood how the world worked. At 50, I believed I had mastered life. But I was wrong at every stage. When I was young, I believed success would make me happy. Not peace. Not love. Not presence. Success. I grew up in a small house with a leaking roof and cold winters. My father worked until his hands cracked. My mother stretched every coin like it was elastic. We weren't miserable, but we were always worried. And I made a silent promise as a boy. I will never live like this again. It sounded brave. It sounded ambitious. But that promise slowly turned into an obsession. The chase. In my 20s and 30s, I chased money like it was oxygen. I worked long hours. I said yes to every opportunity. I sacrificed sleep, friendships, even parts of my own character. I told myself, I'll rest later. I'll enjoy life later. I'll spend time with family later. Later. That word is dangerous. Later becomes next year. Next year becomes a decade. A decade becomes a lifetime. I missed birthdays. I missed sunsets. I missed small conversations that never came back. But I gained promotions. I gained respect. I gained a bigger house. And every time I reached a new level, I felt proud. For a few days. Then the hunger returned. The first wake-up call. When I was 42, my closest friend died suddenly. He was healthy. Strong. Only 41. One day we were laughing about retirement plans. The next week, I was standing beside his coffin. I remember looking at him and thinking. He didn't even get to slow down. At the funeral, people spoke about how kind he was. How present he was. How he always made time. No one mentioned how much money he made. No one talked about his job title. That day, I felt something crack inside me. For about 2 weeks, I questioned everything. I thought about changing my priorities. I thought about working less. I thought about being more available to my family. But then, life pulled me back in. Deadlines. Responsibilities. Goals. The crack in my heart slowly sealed over. I told myself, I'll change after this next big project. I didn't. The cost of not now. By 55, I had achieved what my younger self dreamed of. Financial stability. Recognition. A respected position. But my children had grown up while I was busy building security. They loved me, I know they did. But there was a distance. Not anger. Not hatred. Distance. The kind created by too many missed soccer games. Too many rushed dinners. Too many, I'm tired today. One evening, my daughter, already a grown woman, said something gently that cut deeper than any insult ever could. She said, Dad, I know you did everything for us. I just wish we had more of you. More of you. Not more money. Not more gifts. Not more opportunities. More of you. That sentence echoed in my mind for years. The illusion. Here is what I learned slowly, painfully. We think we're sacrificing today for tomorrow. But tomorrow is not guaranteed. And even if it comes, the people you were sacrificing for might not need what you built. They needed you. You see, life tricks us. It tells us. Work harder now, relax later. Worry now, feel safe later. Accumulate now, enjoy later. But later keeps moving. It's like chasing the horizon. The closer you think you are, the further it stretches. I spent decades trying to control the future. I forgot to experience the present. The turning point. When I was 76, something changed. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Quietly. I was sitting alone one afternoon. My wife was in the garden. The house was silent. For the first time in my life, I had no urgent task. No pressing goal. And I felt empty. Not because I had nothing. But because I had never learned how to simply be. I didn't know how to sit without planning. I didn't know how to enjoy without achieving. I didn't know how to exist without chasing. That day, I realized something terrifying. I had built a successful life. But I hadn't built inner peace. That's when the real lesson began to unfold. The lesson most people learn too late. Here it is. Your life is happening right now, not when you finish your goals. Happiness is not a reward at the end of productivity. Peace is not something you unlock after suffering enough. Love is not something you schedule once you're less busy. Life is not a destination. It's this breath. This conversation. This moment. Most people understand this only when they are old, when time becomes louder than ambition. When doctor's appointments replace business meetings. When memories become more valuable than plans. What I would do differently. If I were 30 again, I would still work hard. But I would not worship work. I would still plan for the future. But I would not live only for it. I would measure success differently. Not by income. Not by status. But by presence. Was I present with my children? Was I present with my wife? Was I present with myself? Because here is the painful truth. You can earn back money. You can rebuild reputation. You can even repair some relationships. But you cannot replay time. Once a day ends, it is sealed forever. At 1:03, that reality becomes crystal clear. The regrets no one talks about. People think old age is full of regret about things we did. Sometimes. But more often, regret is about what we didn't do. The apology we delayed. The trip we postponed. The words, "I love you," we assumed were understood. I regret the evenings I was physically home but mentally absent. I regret the stress I carried like a badge of honor. I regret believing that exhaustion was proof of importance. No one on their deathbed says, "I wish I had answered more emails." They say, "I wish I had spent more time with the people I love." I have sat beside enough hospital beds to know that time is not fair, but it is honest. Time does not negotiate. It does not pause because you are busy. It does not slow down because you are unprepared. But it is honest. It gives you exactly 24 hours a day. How you use them becomes your life. At 103, my days are slower now. Simpler. I sit in the morning light. I listen to birds. I speak gently. I forgive quickly. Not because I am perfect. But because I finally understand what matters. And what matters is rarely urgent. That's why we ignore it. Before it's too late. If you are young, you think 103 is unimaginable. I once thought that too. But years don't feel long when you're living them. They feel ordinary. It's only when you look back that you realize how fast they moved. I am not telling you to quit your job. I am not telling you to abandon ambition. I am telling you this. Do not postpone your life. Call your parents. Sit with your children. Laugh without checking your phone. Rest without guilt. Because one day, you will wake up and realize you are no longer building your life. You are remembering it. And memories are either warm or heavy. This is only the beginning of what I've learned in 103 years. When you live long enough, you realize something uncomfortable. Success doesn't protect you from losing what matters most. In part 1, I told you about the lesson I learned at 76, that life is happening now. But I haven't yet told you about the mistake that nearly cost me the love of my life. Her name was Margaret. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't demand attention. But she had a quiet strength that made everyone around her feel safe. When we were young, I thought she needed my protection. I didn't realize that one day, I would need hers far more. The slow drift. People think relationships fall apart because of big betrayals. Sometimes they do. But more often, they fade from small neglect. Small dismissals. Small silences. Small moments of choosing something else. Work was my excuse. Responsibility was my shield. If Margaret ever complained that I was too busy, I would say, "I'm doing this for us." That sentence sounds noble. But it can also be selfish. Because what us really needed wasn't always more money. It was connection. The night I almost lost her. I was 63 when everything came to a breaking point. By then, the children had their own lives. The house was quieter. The distractions were fewer. And silence reveals cracks. One evening, Margaret sat across from me at the dinner table. The food was untouched. She looked at me for a long time before speaking. "I feel alone," she said. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just honest. Those 3 words shook me more than any argument could have. "I'm right here," I replied. But she shook her head. "No. You're here physically. But you left years ago." That was the moment I understood something terrifying. You can be present in a room and absent in a life. Ego is expensive. My first reaction wasn't humility. It was defense. I listed everything I had provided. The house. The comfort. The security. But love is not a transaction. You cannot replace emotional absence with material stability. Margaret didn't want proof of my effort. She wanted my attention. And I had spent decades giving my best energy to the world, and my leftovers to my family. That realization hurt my pride. And pride is dangerous. Because pride would rather be right than be connected. The 30-day decision. A week after that conversation, Margaret told me she was thinking about living separately for a while. Not because she hated me. But because she didn't recognize us anymore. At 63, after decades of marriage, I was facing the possibility of losing the woman who stood beside me through everything. Not because of betrayal. But because of neglect. That's when fear finally broke my ego. For the first time, I didn't argue. I listened. Really listened. She spoke about years of feeling second place to my ambition. About conversations cut short. About vacations where I answered phone calls instead of holding her hand. And I realized something painful. She wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for partnership. If I could speak to my younger self, I would tell him. Don't let ego win small arguments that cost you big connections. Don't confuse responsibility with emotional distance. Don't assume people know how much you love them, show them. And most importantly, don't wait for a crisis to change. Change while there is still time. Now, at 1:03. At my age, most of my friends are gone. The house is quiet again. But this time, the quiet feels different. It feels peaceful. Because I know that in the end, I corrected my course. I didn't die successful and alone. I grew old grateful and connected. That is the difference. In part 3, I will share the final truth I discovered after 100, about fear, death, and why most people waste years worrying about things that never happen. But for now, remember this. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. And love means nothing if you are too distracted to feel it. Don't learn that at 63. Don't learn it at 76. And please, don't wait until 103.